Good morning, dear students. This is part 2 of chapter 7, that is control and coordination. Already part 1 we have done. If you remember, in part 1 we discussed about reflex action and neurons. Okay, so what we are going to do in this session? We are going to learn about human brain and protection of these tissues, means brain tissues, nervous tissues, and how does the nervous tissues cause action. All these three topics we'll discuss over here. So let me start with human brain. A human brain is very important part of human body. Why? Because it controls each and everything that is happening with our body. In last session, we discussed about reflex action, and I told you that reflex action is handled by or controlled by spinal cord. Let me tell you, spinal cord is also a part of the brain. Okay, this is part of hindbrain. So, is there only reflex action that is handled or controlled by spinal cord? Obviously not. There are other actions also, they are controlled by spinal cord. Okay, so spinal cord, let me tell you what is spinal cord. Spinal cord is made up of nerves and that supply information to think about. Thinking involves more complex mechanism and neural connections. These are concentrated in the brain, which is the main coordinating center of the body. The brain and the spinal cord constitute the central nervous system. They receive information from all parts of the body and they integrate it. So they both work together, spinal cord and brain. All together they both make CNS or central nervous system. Okay, and central nervous system controls and coordinates all the activity in our body. The communication between the central nervous system and other parts of the body facilitated by the peripheral nervous system consisting of cranial nerves that are arising from the brain and spinal nerves that are arising from the spinal cord. Okay, the brain thus allows us to think and take actions based on that thinking. Whatever actions are controlled by brain, there we need thinking. As you will expect, that is accomplished through a complex design with different parts of the brain responsible for integrating different inputs and outputs. The brain has three major parts, that is forebrain. Here you can see the forebrain and the midbrain, and here it is hindbrain. Okay, and this is bone, this portion. Okay, and spinal cord is arising from here only. You can see the forebrain is the biggest part, and here this is midbrain, and then this is hindbrain. Okay, so these are the major parts of the brain. The forebrain is main thinking part of the brain. Forebrain has the regions that receive sensory impulses from various receptors. Separate areas of the forebrain are specialized for separate activities like hearing, smelling, and seeing. There are separate areas of association where these sensory informations are interpreted by putting it together with the information from other receptors as well as with information that is already stored in the brain. Based on all this, a decision is made about how to respond, and the information is passed on to the motor areas which control the movement of voluntary muscles. For examples, our leg muscles. Mean to say is the forebrain is receiving informations from different part of the body at the same time. It will collect the information, it will identify the information, and after thinking, it will order to our motor areas, whether we have to move, whether we have to sleep, whether we have to touch, whether we have to take away our hands or not. Okay. So, however, certain sensations are distinct from seeing or hearing. For example, How do we know that we have eaten enough? Now we should stop. Who is going to tell us? These are the sensations. These are not any changes or stimulus or any information that it is stored in the brain, and now brain will identify that now you have eaten up enough and now you stop. So who will tell us that we have eaten up enough? Or who will tell us, or what is going to, whether brain is going to tell us that now you are hungry and eat food and only you are supposed to eat one roti only? So these are the sensation of feeling full is because of a center associated with hunger, which is a separate part of the forebrain. In forebrain, there are the parts that will identify all these sensations, or we can call them feelings. These are the feelings. So there are separate parts in forebrain. They will identify those feelings. Have you ever noticed that your mouth start watering when you see the food that you like? See, watering your mouth has no meaning. Then also it starts watering. And your heart beat without even thinking. Do you think every day that now I should start my heart beating or now I should stop my heart beating? No, you do not. These are the automatic activities. Can you control all these actions by thinking only? No, you cannot. You can't even remember that you are supposed to do these activities to be alive. Okay. Do you ever make any timetable that now you have to breathe? Now at this time your food should be digested. Now your eyes should blink. No, you do not have any timetable. If you are eating the food, your stomach will digest the food automatically. Okay. Every day, your heart beating, your breathing is continuous with your life. Even if you think you cannot stop these activities for a moment, the moment these activities are stopped, you die. And that is also not in your hand. Okay. So, in between the simple reflex actions like change in size of the pupil and the thoughts of the actions such as moving a chair, there is another set of muscle movements over which we do not have any thinking control. And these type of activities are known as involuntary actions. Means we cannot think about that, they are automatic. And these actions are controlled by midbrain and hindbrain. The midbrain, the midbrain is the portion of the central nervous system that handles some activities, and those activities are vision, motor control, sleep, and wake cycles. And midbrain also controls alertness and temperature regulations. Involuntary actions like blood pressure, salivation, vomiting, they are controlled by medulla oblongata, and that is the part of hindbrain. On the other hand, voluntary actions like walking in a straight line, that is voluntary actions because you can think and you can act accordingly that I have to walk in a straight line. Riding a bicycle, picking up a pencil, or possible due to a part of the hindbrain, all these activities are handled by cerebellum. Cerebellum is a part of hindbrain and that is responsible for maintaining the posture of your body and balance of your body. Here you will find cerebellum, this part, this is, that is small part you are seeing, that is, okay. And here is medulla oblongata, this one. Okay. On the basis of thinking, we can say there are two types of actions. Number one is voluntary action and number two is involuntary actions. What are voluntary actions? After all these discussions, I think you know it well that the actions that are based on deciding what to do next are called voluntary actions. After thinking, they are done, means they are controlled. For example, writing, talking, moving a chair, clapping at the end of the program. These are the examples of voluntary actions. On the other hand, involuntary actions, they cannot be acted by thinking. They are not in your control. Okay, as I told you, the actions on which we do not have any thinking control are called involuntary actions. For example, breathing, digesting food, or blinking the eyes. How are these Delicate organs protected. As you know, our brain is a very delicate organ. On the other hand, it is very important also. So these type of delicate organs should be protected carefully. So how can we protect them? Actually, we need not to protect them. Nature has done this task also. Our body is designed in that way that the brain sits inside a bony box and brain is safe. Inside that box, the brain is contained in a fluid filled balloon type structure, and this fluid filled balloon type structure provides shock absorption to this brain. And just try to touch your back. In the middle of the back, you will find a hard, bumpy structure that is called vertebral column or backbone. And this backbone protects the spinal cord. So this way we can protect our tissues. So let me write it in a proper way. The brain is protected by bones of the skull and by a covering of three thin membrane. They are called meanings. The brain is also cushioned and protected by cerebrospinal fluid. This watery fluid is produced by the special cells in four hollow spaces in the brain, and they are called ventricles. So there is a natural system to protect brain. Here in this picture you can see this is the skull. Here is the skull, that is, and these are three meanings. Matlab झिल्ली 1, 2 and 3. These are brain tissue. So brain tissues are protected by this system. Okay. So what does skull do? Skull protects our brain from any injury. And what does this CFS, cerebrospinal fluid? Actually, this fluid surrounding the brain acts as a shock absorber and that stop our brain bumping around in our skull. Meanings means layers. These layers, they are the protective layers, and between each layer also, जो CFS, cerebrospinal fluid, is there between each layer, and it helps to protect the brain and act as a shock absorber if we get a bump to the head. So this way, this is the natural way we can protect our brain. How does the nervous tissue cause action? Let me discuss the topic forward. We already had a lot of discussion about nervous tissues, and we have learned about how nervous tissue collect information and how do they send this information around the body and how this information is processed. And then on the basis of this information, we make decisions, and then this decision is conveyed to the muscles for action. Actually, this is the total process behind any action. So, very complicated process it is. And when a nerve impulse reaches the muscle fiber must move. Now question is, how do animal muscles move? Okay, here in animation you can see the muscles are moving. You can see the contraction in the muscles. Simply I can ask, when the action or movement is to be performed, muscle tissues will do the final job. But how do these muscles move? Let me answer this question. Muscle cell move by changing their shape so that they shorten. Okay, but now the question is, how do muscle cells change their shape? The answer is, okay, chemistry can answer this question. There is a cellular component that helps the muscles to move. So muscle cell have special protein that change both their shape also and their arrangement in the cells also. And the reaction is, sorry, the response is that they move. When this happens, new arrangement of these proteins give the muscle cell a shorter form, and the result is muscles move. Thick filaments in the muscles contain myosin and thin filament contain actin. troponin and tropomyosin. These all are the special proteins that I talked about in the slide. Actually, these are not in the books, just for your information, and I think this is interesting to know that which are the proteins that help our muscles to move. That is why I have kept this slide over here. And scientists, they think that the muscles contract by the two types of filaments sliding over each other, and when they overlap, movement is occur. The structure of myosin is thick muscles filament, and myosin again is made up of 6 polypeptide chains that you need not to study. Here, if you find interesting, you can see over here, that is the muscle. Okay, and this is the magnified picture of this muscle bundles, this one. And here you will find the fascicile, this portion, see. And this is magnified picture of this portion. Okay, that is muscle fiber. And here you will find myofibril. This picture, this one, is magnified picture of this portion. Okay, and again if it is magnified, we will get this picture. And here you can see the myosin, then actin. Okay, so these are the special protein, they help our muscles to move. Here are the some questions from your book. Let me read the questions. What is the difference between a reflex action and walking? I think now after attending this session, now you know it very well and you can answer this. Reflex action are involuntary, walking is not. The second question is what happens at the synapse between two neurons? This also you know, between two neurons at the synapse, electric signals are converted into chemicals. Which part of the brain maintains posture and equilibrium of the body? Recently we have discussed, that is the cerebellum. How do we detect the smell of agarbatti? See, in the starting of the session we discussed about that olfactory receptors present in our nose sends electric signal to the forebrain, and then forebrain interprets the signals as the incense stick to be detected as smell. This is the answer of question number 5. What is the role of the brain in reflex action? Actually, there is directly no role, but as you know, reflex actions are generated in spinal cord, and then information also reaches the brain. Okay, so this information is stored in the brain as a record. Okay, and brain remember it for future. Brain helps the person to get awareness of the stimulus and prevent himself from the situation again. So this is the role of the brain in reflex action. So okay students, this much was there for this session. Now I'll meet you again with part 3 of this chapter. Thank you.